Good evening, everyone. We are all so pleased that you're here. I'm going to read a scripture, and then I'm going to do the prayer, and we can get it going. So the scripture I'm reading comes from 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 through 2. And it reads, I urge you, first of all, to pray for all people. Ask God to help them, intercede on their behalf, and give thanks for them. Pray this way for kings and all who are in authority so that we can live peaceful and quiet lives marked by godliness, dignity, and holiness. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Father God, we come to you this evening thanking you for another day that you have given to us. I come before you on behalf of our mayor of the city of Poughkeepsie. And Father, we thank you for him and all of our leaders in this city. I ask that you give him grace to bring truth and stability to this city. Give him the power to do what is right and to do what is fair. Please give him strength and wisdom and guide his decisions so that he always puts love first and the residents of the city of Poughkeepsie. Surround him with people who lift him up and support him, and let him do the same for others. I pray your grace over him right now. You tell us in your word that your grace is sufficient, so let your divine power rest upon him right now, that even through insults, criticism, and persecution, he will have the strength to continue on. And as he prepares to give his address this evening, remove the nervousness, guide his mouth, guide his words, and guide his heart. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. And now I'm just going to run down the program and so now we're going to welcome the Mighty Young Techs, and they're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance in English and Spanish. Following them, we're going to have Jasmine Garvin, who is going to sing the national anthem. And following her, we will have our chairwoman, Natasha Brown, chairwoman of the City of Poughkeepsie Common Council. She will come with remarks in that order.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good evening. We can clap again for the children and Miss Garvin. Young people just make my heart sing, and it's going to be even easier to deliver my remarks after that beautiful song in our pledge. It is my honor to introduce Mayor Nelson to deliver the State of the City address. Just last year, I had the honor to introduce our former mayor and now our senator, Rob Rollison. I guess you can say I'm a lucky woman to have two great friends in both the mayor and the senator. We can amen, yes. Mayor Nelson had to step up and fulfill the duties of both mayor and city administrator once Senator Rollison went to service in Albany. That was no easy task. But Mayor Nelson including the rest of the city, including the Common Council, are committed to moving this city forward, and that deserves a round of applause. I have worked with Mayor Nelson for the last 6 years, from the time he served as the Commissioner of Finance and I was chair of the Finance Committee. I still giggle to this day when I think about my first impression of Mayor Nelson. You want to hear a funny story? I was sitting in then Mayor Rollison's office preparing for a meeting about the city's FRB application. In walks Mayor Nelson. At first glance, I see this robust man with an even more robust personality. I thought to myself, this guy reminds me of John Candy and Uncle Buck. Remember the scene when Macaulay Culkin comes home from school and says, "Who are you?" And John Candy says, "I'm your Uncle Buck." That's what Marc reminded me of. That scene will forever be fixed in my mind. On a serious note, I am proud of what we have accomplished together, especially the city's momentum to move to financial solvency and be in a much better place to support our residents with much needed services. Public service is what it's all about. And Mayor Nelson is one of the most compassionate public servants I've ever met. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend, Mayor Marc Nelson.
Thank you, Natasha. I lost for words. It's been a pleasure working with you for 6.5 years, and I am your Mr. Buck. So I love that. And everybody watching at home that needs anything, any background on that, see me after the speech, and I'll fill you in. Greetings, friends and neighbors. I'm gonna speak up because I know volume is tough in the back of the room. So just sort of go like this if I'm not loud enough. It is my distinct honor and privilege to deliver the State of the City address to you this evening. It is an evening of firsts. Our first State of the City address in this magnificent space. Our first address with our new council chairwoman and new council leadership. And it's also, of course, my first State of the City address as your mayor. Together, we are transforming our magnificent city into an efficient and effective unit of local government. We set about the job of regaining our proud status as the Queen City, and we remain focused on that and on repairing the wrongs of the past by making our local government more strategic, agile, and responsive to the needs of our community. Tonight, we celebrate a number of important milestones achieved, and we present our plan for the shared successes of this year and for the years to come. I'd like to thank our hosts at the Academy, and I want to recognize my colleagues in government gathered here with us tonight. And before I mention them by name, I do want to emphasize what Chairwoman Brown and my good friend Natasha just said. You know, and I think I say it later, but it's worth repeating. It is a new era of cooperation. And I'm just thrilled to be able to say to you tonight that we're working with the council on a number of important initiatives and goals that I'm going to speak about briefly this evening. One of the risks of doing this by name is I'll miss somebody, so what I've decided to do is just ask if our council members could please stand and be recognized. And can we please give them all a round of applause? We also have with us our city court judges, and we also are joined by the Deputy County Executive. Rachel is here. Where's Rachel? Please stand and be recognized. Thank you so much. A few others are recognized in the speech, so we're going to keep moving forward, and we'll circle back to some of them. Regarding the council, though, before I move on, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my good friend, who I think we've seen already this evening, Councilmember Lorraine Johnson, who is term limited, and Lorraine knows this story. We talk about it frequently. Lorraine is term limited and will be leaving the council at the end of this year after 8 years of service. Can we please recognize Lorraine? One of the things that I'm learning to do, and I really love to do, is recognize my good friend and mentor, now Senator Rob Rollison, who, as Stacy indicated, couldn't be with us tonight up in Albany, representing a much bigger district, and I must say, doing it very well. He has been, as you all know, one of my best friends. I would not be here tonight if it wasn't for him. And I want to recognize his wife, Lori, who's with us. One more round of applause. Lori. Thank you. And, we are streaming live on Facebook, so I hope Senator Rollison gets a break sometime around 10 o'clock tonight and can, replay this. But Rob really paved the way for many of the accomplishments that I'm going to be going through tonight and mentioning. Particularly Rob's emphasis was, when I joined the city back in 2016, the financial stability and the fiscal solvency of this city. And I think many of you in the room have heard me talk about this before, but it really was a choice between working our way out of the mess or accepting deficit financing from the state of New York and really turning over the keys to state government in a way that municipalities that go through that process have told us doesn't always go the way the community wants it to. So I'm here before you tonight to just recognize Rob and the team that he brought to City Hall when you elected him in November of 2015. And you'll hear me talk a little bit about the financial stability of the city that we can all take credit for tonight. And so, as I said, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him, but I can't give the senator all the credit. You see, I needed to first make sure my family was behind me in this decision to serve, right? Because, as Stacy said, it isn't easy, I will confess, doing both jobs. And if John Penny will let me go off script for just a minute, that was not by choice. That was by a quirk of our charter that specifically says that I must serve both roles, because I would have much preferred to have more help. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Anyway, as we know, family is everything. I have the absolute best family. My wife, Lisa, is here. My kids, Brian and Kevin, are watching from home. And my granddaughter, Winnie, is watching too. So thank you for that. We have not been able to get my 87-year-old mother on to Facebook Live, but we're working on email and we're making some good progress. My entire family stands behind me, just as I know all of you do. And I mean that sincerely. Looking around the room, I know that you do support me, and that you do support our joint goals and our shared vision for the city of Poughkeepsie. And we really are a great team. All of us are a great team. The energy and support here in the city of Poughkeepsie, I confess I didn't feel it so vibrantly 5 or 6 years ago. I spent most of my time in City Hall crunching numbers and trying to solve problems. But over the years, and especially the last year or two, I've really felt the passion of this community. And, I think that the bug that is the buzz that we all have, it hit me a couple of years ago, and I started thinking, I don't want to leave. I want to stay in the city of Poughkeepsie like you all do, and continue to do great things with you and for our community. John Penny tells me the buzz is back. He's been saying the buzz is back, and I got to tell you, it really is back. And I think at the end of my remarks tonight, I'm going to ask you if you think it's back, and I hope you do. Last year at this time, I had no way of knowing that I would be standing in front of you as your mayor delivering a State of the City address. It's frankly, it's overwhelming. My tenure here has been an opportunity of a lifetime because it's included overcoming significant obstacles that I'm not going to go through tonight. Many of you know what they were and the ones that are there today that we're working on together to resolve. A lot of those obstacles are resolved. They're gone, and they're not in our way anymore. And because they're not in our way, we have an opportunity to start to take a breath and look at some of the things that we haven't had time to look at over the years. If the house is on fire, you're not going to take time to build a new garage in your backyard. And so what you've seen from city government over the last few years is, as we've put out the fires and solved a lot of the problems, we've taken on new initiatives. And I'm going to talk about our youth grant program tonight. I'm going to talk about our new partnership with Dutchess County and the formation of the U, and a number of other things that many of you already know about. But to put it in perspective before we get into the details, I just want to emphasize that none of this would be possible without collaborations, without partnerships, and most of all, without having resolved so many of those challenges that faced the city in 2015 going into 2016. So thank you to everybody that had a role and has a role in making this possible. As we review our recent accomplishments and plan for our future successes, I always do start briefly with the city's finances. And I think, it's worth noting that under the city charter, I'm required to report to the Common Council and to the public every year on the state of affairs in the city. And that really means how are we managing our own house and how are we doing on the fiscal front. As has been the case ever since my time as finance commissioner, the foremost important work of our day in and day out, is restoring the fiscal credibility of this great city and ensuring that our future is fortified by the strongest financial foundation possible. Doing so will enable us to continue to position ourselves in a way that will improve the quality of life for our residents, our businesses, and the people who visit our great city. I want to say this very clearly, that I am able to stand here tonight and report to you that the city finances are at the best they've been, the best level they've been in 2 decades. That's 20 years. It's extraordinary. It's just extraordinary. The numbers speak for themselves quickly. We've worked hard to reduce a more than $13.2 million general fund deficit, and we expect that it will be completely eradicated when we submit the 2024 budget to our Common Council this year. That's not all that awaits. We anticipate very positive news from our rating agencies very soon. I've learned over the years in finance to never get ahead of Moody's and S&P, but I just can't resist telling you what happened a couple of weeks ago at City Hall. Your public servants did an amazing, an extraordinary job of preparing for probably the most important ratings agency visit any city in the Hudson Valley has had 20 years. And we had both Moody's and S&P in the house about 2 weeks ago for a full day, walking tour of the city, meeting department heads. We had a PowerPoint presentation showing them all the numbers, our debt service costs going down, the fact that we've stayed under the tax cap for 6 straight years while we're somehow managing to provide more services to our community. All of these things, we spent a good 6 or 7 hours with them, and we expect a report from them within the next month or so. And I just want to take a moment to recognize the city's finance department. Many of them are here. Brian Martinez, if you would stand, please. Dr. Brian Martinez, and I know we've got, thank you, Brian, some people in the back. When Rob came in January of 16, he says, and I wasn't there until September, the lights were off. And, we don't say that figuratively. It was the case. The lights were off and the switches didn't work and the heat didn't work. It was just crazy. And we are here today to celebrate all of those years of hard work. But more importantly, to talk about tonight how that positions our city to move forward in 2023 and over the next few years. And that's what I want to talk to you about this evening. The city's finances have also been bolstered by the American Rescue Plan Act. And, I have to just say, thank you to our federal partners, right? It shouldn't go without saying. Somebody gives you $20 million, we are going to say thank you for a long time. So thank you to everybody who had a role in passing that. And we are trying to be good stewards of that federal money. There were a couple of quick rules that the U.S. Treasury Department had imparted on us and other participants in this from the very beginning. You want to use the money in a way that impacts the greatest number of lives and citizens in your community, and you want to use it in a way that is sustainable for the out years, and in a way that it has the maximum community impact. And so you don't want to use it to hire a bunch of people that you can't afford to pay once the money runs out. You want to try to find things to do with the money that you realize you're not getting $20 million again anytime soon. So tonight I'm going to tell you where we are on our investment in city infrastructure. I'm going to talk briefly about our investment in city parks, millions of dollars. That is all coming from ARPA money, not from city taxpayers. Along the way, it hasn't just been the work of the finance team by itself, of course. Our partners in other levels of government and our stakeholders in the city and even other municipalities in the region have had a big impact as well. I just want to mention, but before I get into some great news, I want to go back a few months and just point out that the city of Poughkeepsie was successful in negotiating a new 10-year sales tax agreement with Dutchess County. It wasn't as well reported by the media as it should have been. This was, I would say life-altering for the city of Poughkeepsie. If your revenue is coming, 80 or 90% from property taxes, it's not really a sustainable budget. And if you take property taxes aside, you're not going to run a city on your revenue from parking or building permit fees or anything else. That sales tax agreement gave the city of Poughkeepsie an immediate infusion of $3 million, and that was to make up for really money that should have been paid in prior years. I want to thank Dutchess County for coming to the table and negotiating fairly with the city of Poughkeepsie. And also I want to thank our partner city, the city of Beacon, which was part of this agreement. This was two cities with Dutchess County, and we have for the city of Poughkeepsie and Beacon probably the best sales tax agreement in the state of New York. So thank you to Dutchess County. I was aided by some really brilliant people in that negotiation. And I will tell you that when it comes time for me to retire, that will be one of the things that I point to, along with perhaps, our transit merger, which, by the way, for those who were here back in the day when we merged our transit, again, under Rob Rollison's leadership with Dutchess County, let me just say again, it was Dutchess County that came forward and did that. They didn't have to do that. And I want to thank Dutchess County for that, even though it was some years ago. So once again, thank you to Dutchess County. We can say that, well, we're entitled. We can have that opinion if we want to. And maybe some will have that opinion that all we did was write a terrible tax agreement from 10 years prior. But let me tell you, your elected leaders approved that bad sales tax agreement all those years ago, and the city suffered because of it. And the reason that we've got a better sales tax agreement now is because you've got a better leadership team, including our finance commissioner and everyone else at City Hall. And as you'll hear me conclude my remarks tonight, thanking city staff, the reason I'm thanking them is not because they come to work every day and they do the work of our community, but it's because they do it so well. The fact of the matter is that improvements at the city of Poughkeepsie and City Hall and throughout our community are being made across the board. That doesn't mean I'm going to stand here and ignore all the things that still need to be done, that aren't done out on the streets of Poughkeepsie tonight. When we leave, we will see them, and I'll talk about them briefly later. But while we stay intensely focused on the city's financial condition, we do recognize that our services to the public are just as important. That's really the trouble and the challenge that we've had for the last 6 or 7 years, is balancing the need to get that deficit under control and regain our investment-grade bond rating at the same time as we pump millions into parks, as we put more money into youth services and all the other things that we're doing. It is the balancing test that I am particularly proud of. And public service and services to the community start with public safety. And I think, as my mentor, Rob Rollison, always did, he started with public safety, because I would sometimes start with finance. But really, in today's world, I'm beginning to think it's public safety. And I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are and what we've done, and also what we're going to do. I want to give you some of the accomplishments first, just so you have that background against where we're going. The most important thing, I think, and that's just my opinion, others might not share it, is we have been bringing more diversity to the ranks of our police force. So thank you, Chief Pape, and thank you to the command staff. I want to thank the members of our Common Council who have emphasized that, along with the administration. We did not do this alone. We were pushed, we were told, we were helped, and I want to thank particularly Councilmember Flowers for working with us on the Procedural Justice Committee and doing so much to help move our police department forward. Yvonne. The department is also, and this isn't unique to Poughkeepsie, but we're very proud of it, we're guiding residents by providing free preparation to those who want to take the police officer's civil service examination. I think we've told our Common Council over the years what the challenges are in terms of recruiting and retaining the best, the top of the line police force in the city of Poughkeepsie. And it hasn't been easy. I'm off script again, but I'm going to share with you that 23, it might be 24, of our officers are newly eligible to retire. They can walk out the door tomorrow. And I think that's a risk. If people ask me as your mayor, what are the 2 or 3 biggest risks the city faces, that's up there among the top 3 or 4, certainly, along with infrastructure, which I'm going to talk about briefly later. You don't know what you can't see, so what's underground is also something that keeps me up at night. But in addition to boosting the diversity of the ranks of the police and guiding City of Poughkeepsie residents and helping residents of the city become policemen and women, they have also been reinstated. They've worked hard to reinstate community policing role along Main Street. And I'm going to take just a second here. I was sworn in, I think, January 3rd or 4th. I don't recall. And one of the first meetings I had was with Police Command. And, it was one of the most important things that I wanted to do right out of the gate, was impress upon our leaders in the police department that community policing is the way to go, that knowing every single person and helping every single member of the community and leading is the way to do it. And you can clap for that, because you know what? We're going to do it. We are going to continue to do it. I've driven Main Street every day, weekends too, since I took the oath of office. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen our officers doing their work on Main Street, and, they are trying to help. They are approaching their task in a humanitarian way, in a very ethical and equitable way. And it's not an easy task that they do. We are, and I'll jump to the next section ahead of myself, but we are also very proud in the police department to have been probably the first, certainly in the region, and I see Captain Wilson over here. I didn't see you. Welcome, Captain. To embed a mental health professional with our PD and we are going to triple that over the next couple of years. We're getting more grants to do it. So I want to thank Captain Wilson. Didn't see you there. A point of personal privilege, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I do like it when Poughkeepsie goes first. I really like it when we come up with something and we do it and we achieve what we are able to achieve here in the city of Poughkeepsie, and our neighboring communities say, you know what, that's a great idea. We're going to do it too. Whether it's Kingston or Middletown or Newburgh or any of those. I'm a little bit of a competitive mayor, and I think that we're really showing some strengths when it comes to innovation. We were certainly the first out of the gate when it came to procedural justice and police reform. I got to tell you, and you've heard it before, long before Governor Cuomo signed that executive order, the city of Poughkeepsie Police Department was working on police reform, along with Yvonne Flowers and I think 20-some people that served on and continue to serve on the Procedural Justice Committee. That's not something that we just did because we had to do it and now we've moved on and we've forgotten it. It is alive and well in the city of Poughkeepsie. So with our partners at Mental Health America of Dutchess County and Hudson River Housing, we're going to continue to assist those on the street in need of mental health or housing services. And again, I'll come back to this a few times this evening. I want to thank Dutchess County. If you think that the city of Poughkeepsie is able to do this and should do it and will do it on its own, and we don't need county partners, well, you know what? You're wrong. And so I want to again thank Dutchess County, and particularly the Dutchess County Department of Health and Behavioral Services that has been such a strong partner to the city of Poughkeepsie. The same thing is true, you'll hear soon, when it comes to housing and also economic development. We secured additional body camera funding. Again, thank you, Captain Wilson from New York State and Dutchess County. I'm going to tell you how much it was, $320,000, which is great. That's a lot of money to a poor city. We were one of the first in the area to put body cams on our police officers, and we led the way in that regard. And now we're getting help again from Dutchess County and the state of New York. And finally, one of our personal favorites, and I wish we could have rolled it out earlier, is we've deployed 10 license plate readers and cameras in strategic locations throughout the city. And we are in the process of adding a gunshot detection system later this year, which I think it's actually good that we delayed deploying it because the technology is quite a bit better now than it was when other municipalities jumped into deploying that technology some years ago. And certainly with respect to the cameras that have been deployed, I know from seeing the reports coming out of the police department that they've had a real impact, and they are continuing to have a real impact. They will have a real impact. So thank you to everyone who's working in the... And just one more thing on police. I mentioned 22, 23, 24 are newly eligible to retire. I think we just brought 4 or 5 on board, didn't we, Captain? So we are continuing to recruit heavily. We're also looking at other ways to retain our officers. It's always a challenge when richer communities to our south, for example, are paying more than we are. And you'll hear me speak about this briefly later, but we're all facing inflation in our own lives. Just stop for a minute and think what it's doing to the city of Poughkeepsie. If you have a $500,000 project that was funded a year ago, it's $1.2 million today. If you had a $2 million parks project, as my finance commissioner told me last month, it's not 2, it's 3. And these are the types of problems that we're facing in our own lives, but we are facing it at City Hall as well. I think we all know that you can't acknowledge our finest without mentioning the bravest. And I have to thank and recognize our firefighters and the command staff at the fire department. There's a whole bunch of great stories about our fire department that I want to share with you. It's simply the best in the region. I mean, it's the best in class fire department. We need to know, and thank you for that. When I give you these numbers, I had to ask the chief twice, please give me the right numbers, chief. I sent him back an email. I got the same numbers. So I'm going to read this to make sure I got it right. Last year, our firefighters responded within minutes to more than 5,300 calls for service. 5,300 calls for service, of which 2,600 were for emergency medical response. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, Chief. You know, for those that don't know, I think everybody in the room does, but for those watching at home, Fire Chief Joe Franco took the reins last year and is doing excellent work. He's in my office more than any other department head, as he should be, because we've got a lot of work to do in the fire department, and we are going to do that work. Also, this recently, I guess just a few days ago maybe, we swore in Lieutenant Vincent Parisi as our deputy chief. So, Deputy, I know you were serving in the role for quite a while before we got around to swearing you in. So, congratulations to you and your beautiful wife. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. You know, we've also added fire inspectors, some other staff, some critically important equipment. But I just want to be clear and say it so you all understand it, that we will always find a way with our Common Council to outfit our fire department with the resources that they need to get the job done. And that is a commitment that I'll make to you and to our fire chief tonight. So thank you. You know, before I leave fire, this is one thing I really feel strongly about personally, you know, and I will admit that the fire department kind of got away from this back in the down days when the city's finances were going in the other direction. But the department is really working hard to raise public awareness about safety issues and plans to work with schools to help show how math and science is applicable to a career in the fire service. It's another example of departments at City Hall working closely with our colleagues at the Poughkeepsie City School District, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So thank you very much for that, Chief. My favorite part of this is to kind of tell you what you already know, so please forgive me, but I want to talk for just a minute and speak with you about our efforts to assist city youth and what we've done over the last year and a half in partnership with the city school district, and I got to say a host of stakeholders, many of whom are in the room right now. It's one of the things I know Senator Rollison was most proud of because he started the youth grant program back in 2017 or 2018, and it's grown every year since then. So we have greatly increased our capacities to support our youth through these new initiatives and increased funding. And as you know, we've created a division of youth opportunity and development at City Hall. And last year we hired Karen Williams as its first director. I don't know if Karen's here, but if she is, I'm going to have her. She is here. And just in case you didn't notice, she's sitting next to Carmen Smallwood, who I want to recognize too. Those two women are rock stars in the city of Poughkeepsie, and all I can do is sit here and watch in humble amazement. But, you know, when we started the youth grant program, I don't think the city was even communicating with the county about what we were doing. And now we're working in partnership with them to make sure that we can leverage taxpayer money in a way that ensures a return on that investment that, frankly, we know we didn't have in the first couple of years. So thank you both, Carmen and Karen, for everything you're doing. When I talk about the city finances and the balance between fixing the problems of the past at the same time as you're pouring money into these services, that's, you know, some in my family call it a magic act, and others in my long professional career who know what we're doing here in the city, friends of mine, other finance commissioners want to know how I do it. And we're not going to tell them that just yet, but we're doing it mainly because of all of you in the room. I have some really great news. Just yesterday, the team that looks at all of the youth grants. We opened up the application period about a month or so ago, I believe, and we've gotten a tremendous response. It's a double-edged sword because the program's doing so well that we had over $1 million in requests against just under $500,000 in funding. So you can see the balance there. But I want to announce tonight that in the next week or 10 days, we will be releasing the list of over 400,000 awardees, $400,000 being awarded to city participants. And it's just extraordinary to me. Those checks will be going out to get into their hands, the hands of our nonprofit partners that really oversee and administer the programs that impact so many people's lives and their families as well. So thank you. You know, we fund and we raised the limits this year from 15,000 to 20,000. That was a big percentage increase. And what we said was, you know, if it's an extraordinary program and there's consensus, we're going to give the maximum award. And I'm very proud that a number of entities and organizations did get the maximum award. Unfortunately, about 30% of applicants necessarily are going to be getting, you know, bad news. We as a city need to, again, come back together with our Common Council, with all of our stakeholders, with the city school district, and make sure that we can continue to deliver what we've been delivering, that we don't send these organizations off the fiscal cliff. We used some ARPA money to accomplish the things I'm talking about tonight, and when ARPA runs out, we have real concerns. And we're going to work with many of you in this room and our partners at the school district to figure this out so that when we submit a budget to the Common Council by October, we have some answers to that question. I want to just take a couple of minutes here and before we move on from youth. I know many of you know this, but I am now the co-chair. I took over from Rob as the co-chair of the Poughkeepsie Children's Cabinet. And I had been, you know, sort of involved in watching from afar back when I was city administrator. So I kind of stepped into the role knowing how important it is to the fabric of our community. But I was just blown away by my recent visit to the Harlem Children's Zone. And I just want to take 2 or 3 minutes, if you'll indulge me, and speak to you about the Children's Cabinet. Because in my walking the streets of Poughkeepsie recently, I will tell you that surprisingly, not a great number of the public really are familiar with the hard work that's going on. And so it's worth talking about briefly this evening. You know, this is a joint venture, obviously, between the city and the school district, and also, again, Dutchess County. I want to recognize our good friend, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Eric Rosser, with us tonight. The Poughkeepsie Children's Cabinet brings together government agencies, child-serving community organizations, health institutions, and other local stakeholders. It is the only one in New York State outside of New York City, and I've been educated by Dr. Rosser and others over the last year that the Cabinet was really formed in recognition of the fact that children spend 80% of their time outside of the classroom and only 20% of their time obviously in the classroom. And it's because of that statistic that we have together embarked on a shared vision and a cradle-to-career agenda for child and youth development throughout the city of Poughkeepsie. Don't take my word for it. I should just quote the Regent's Chancellor, Lester Young, when Children's Cabinet representatives were up there. I think Mayor Rollison was there with Dr. Rosser before he was elected senator. And the Chancellor, Lester Young, said, and I want to quote this, that the Poughkeepsie Children's Cabinet is a model for creating an ecosystem of success for small cities with big challenges, end quote. And boy, he got that absolutely right. You know, we don't intend to let the Chancellor or our children down. In fact, the city's unique relationship with the school district has enabled us to move forward on some impressive fronts, including sharing a full-time bilingual public information officer who engages with the Latino community and is a liaison for the school district in the city. Julie Molina, where are you, Julie? You know, Julie is embedded herself really in the Latino community. She's created a bilingual newsletter, which is, more and more subscribers every week. And we are embarking on a real effort to engage our Latino community, both for our part and with the help and partnership of the school district. Before I leave the Children's Cabinet, I just want to thank particularly a couple of people that have really made this happen. Robert Watson and James Watson. They could not be with us here tonight. I don't see them, but hopefully watching from home. And we'll make sure that they get the message that we thank them very much. Thank you very much. For those who don't know what they did, I mean, they've done so much, but if I had to pick one thing, it was the introduction and the germination, if you will, the planting the seeds of Poughkeepsie with entities like the Harlem Children's Zone, the Ed Redesign Lab at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and so many other partners that have taken a real interest in what the city is doing regarding youth. And they've also, I will say, get out in front of them again, shown a real willingness to significantly fund and help us fundraise ourselves to do some extraordinary things in the city of Poughkeepsie. And finally, I want to recognize Day One's leader, Jerry Laybourne. Jerry, are you here? And all you do for early learning. You know, I was brought to this city as a finance commissioner back in 2016. I didn't know early learning. I want to thank everybody who's taught me so much about why these things are important to not only the city of Poughkeepsie, but to our entire nation. And I am very proud to stand in front of you tonight as mayor of Poughkeepsie and say that some of the things that we're doing here are meaningful on a national level. The first thing that comes to mind is the bipartisanship that we were able to do with a Republican mayor and 9 Democratic council members. We still got a lot done in the city of Poughkeepsie. I don't know, I used to tell my friend Rob Rollison, I'll bet you we're the only city in the state of New York that has a 2-term Republican mayor and 9 Democratic council members. And still, we got things done. We got the YMCA done. We got $10 million shaved off our deficit. We created the youth grant program. And I could go on, but I know John is going to tell me I'm running out of time. I want to just go back to Dutchess County one more time and what we've achieved with the U. You all know it. The Youth Opportunity Union. I want to back up just a minute and tell you that that building, the former YMCA, sat vacant in the city of Poughkeepsie for I don't know how long. I'm going to say a decade, falling down around itself. And there were plans to make it a youth center, and there were plans that could have come to fruition. The city and others, some of our council members worked very hard to make that vision a reality. But at the end of the day, you know what? You need funding to make a dream come true. And we can have all the dreams we want, but if you can't fund them, they're nothing more than dreams. And so what we did at the city of Poughkeepsie was we took that property for back taxes, despite the fact that 6 lawyers told us we shouldn't, because it was an environmental disaster, number one. And number two, if we took it, we'd be responsible for the costs of demolishing it, number two. And there were 5 or 6 other reasons in a memo I still have to this day somewhere telling us why we shouldn't do it. And I went into Rob Rollison's office and I said, I think we need to take it. And he said, well, that could be trouble. And I said, well, it's going to be a lot more trouble if we don't take it. And it's going to sit there for another 10 years falling down around itself. And he said, you know what? Go ahead, go take it. So we took it for back taxes. And I want to thank one person on the city staff who championed the next 5 steps of this process, and that is John Penny, our community engagement director. If ever there was an example in the city of Poughkeepsie of if you build it, they will come, it was our leap of faith to take that building. If anybody wants to see it, it can now be released to the public. There's an environmental review that was done by the city where we literally sent people in with hazmat suits. It looked like something out of, the HBO movie Chernobyl in there. I've never seen anything like it, with the Darth Vader masks and everything else. I don't think that video has ever been released. But I want to tell city taxpayers today that Dutchess County paid $2 million, close to $2 million, I think is the number, to get it demolished. And that would have been on the city taxpayer dime had we not partnered with Dutchess County. So thank you again to Rachel and County Executive Bill O'Neill and the entire team at Dutchess County. And finally on this, I think, again, it's worth repeating, Dutchess County has pledged $25 million to the creation and construction and implementation of this Youth Opportunity Union. I want to recognize so many people that have been a part of this. My friends at the back, Mass Design, Chris Kroner. From engineering to architectural work to programming to reaching out to stakeholders far and wide, not just in the city of Poughkeepsie, but partners around the region. I'm proud to stand here tonight and tell you that I have every confidence that will be constructed and that it will serve not only the city of Poughkeepsie, but also Dutchess County as a whole. And thank you very much. You know, it wasn't that long ago, back when the lights were off. I want to go back. It's not just about, paying down the deficit. We weren't really even able, we didn't have the resources, the bandwidth to apply for grants. Not that we would have gotten them anyway, given the state of affairs at City Hall, but, we are doing such a better job under Commissioner Martinez and other department heads when it comes to asking for those big grants. And before I leave the U, I was reminded that the city was just awarded $2.1 million in federal monies to make infrastructure improvements around that facility, and that is going to increase the water capacity and improve lighting and other infrastructure at the adjoining ball field, which continues to be city-owned. So perhaps the city's most noticeable work of late, and this gets really great, got to tell you, the preview, is our parks. Our parks have long been neglected, and neglected is probably an understatement. Many of you probably remember the Poughkeepsie Journal article from a couple of years ago where they were looking at the equity issues of what, and I don't think it was just Poughkeepsie, but the equity issues of where are we putting our resources, and they didn't put photographs of our South Side parks that were in good shape. They went up to the North Side parks that were in a disgraceful condition from years of neglect and deterioration as the city saw 6 or 7 consecutive years of budget deficits. That was the period of time where we were unable to invest in our own community. And I want to tell you that if we are unable to invest in our community, no one else is going to invest in our community. No developers are coming to invest in a city whose water and sewer infrastructure is crumbling, whose parks are falling apart, and whose streets haven't been paved in how many years? Those investors are returning to the city of Poughkeepsie, and we're going to talk about some of them very soon. $6 million into parks, and it wasn't just our $6 million. Scenic Hudson put $1 million on the table. And let me tell you, they would not have done that 4 or 5 years ago. It wasn't that long ago that Scenic Hudson was looking at, where do they want their headquarters to be? And they've made a continuing commitment to the city of Poughkeepsie by their purchase of property and development of their new headquarters on the north side of Poughkeepsie. And I want to thank Scenic Hudson for the $1 million grants that have gone largely to Malcolm X Park and Pershing Park as well. So thank you to Scenic Hudson. New City Parks, unfortunately, couldn't be here, but they partner not just with us, but with Scenic Hudson. And I want to give a shout out to Rose Harvey and her team who worked with our finance commissioner, our engineers, and people at DPW. I just want to convey in my first State of the City address that it isn't just
the city of Poughkeepsie by itself anymore. It's not just a handful of city employees doing the best they can, working 8 to 4. It's really good people working around the clock with really good partners to make these things happen. And that's what I want to convey to you tonight. Some of these external stakeholders, I could go on for an hour. One of them contributed a couple $100,000, again with the county, to fund 2 soccer pitches at Pulaski Park. I don't know how many have seen them. I love them myself, but we just got those up and running last fall, and they are used almost every day. And they were almost entirely funded by the county and outside grant from the U.S. Soccer Federation. And thank you for that. You know, you look at the work at Pulaski. I mentioned earlier, or maybe I didn't, but I will, the rebuild of our Pulaski pool house. That's one of those projects, by the way, that was funded and estimated to cost about $2 million. It's quite a bit higher now. But that Northside Park, Pulaski, is not only going to have a new pool house, but all new pool equipment, pumps, liners, you name it, and also has the 2 soccer pitches there, making it a gem on the north side of Poughkeepsie. And before I leave parts, I want to just thank engineering. The city taxpayers and residents, probably don't even know. They don't see them. They don't interact with them. Engineers are a funny group of folks, but they work on the second floor of City Hall, and they have these long schematics of things that you can only dream of. They know where every sewer line is, where every gas line is, where every electric line is. And anything you need to know, we go down to the second floor and we ask them. And they are burning the midnight oil. Our city engineer, Rich DePilka, came out of retirement. He retired back in the day. He was one of those people that just pulled and left, said, this isn't working at the city back in 2016. We got him back. And Rich DePilka, I don't think, is with us tonight. But if anybody deserves of all of the division heads in the city, it's Rich DePilka. Let me tell you. We are fortunate to have really a terrific team in engineering and also in DPW. But what I am so proud of, and I don't know that even Senator Rollison could have said this a couple of years ago, is the way that the departments are working together. And previously, because of the problems that each department faced, they were continuing to work in silos with blinders on to fix the problems that were in front of them on their desks. And as those problems have been resolved, they're able to cross-pollinate their expertise with other department heads. And I want to tell you that Chris Gent, our Commissioner of Public Works, I see him in the back. Chris, thank you for what you're doing. I came up through finance. I'm not an engineer or a DPW person. I've learned a lot. But I will tell you, to everybody who thinks DPW is just about the streets and snow, sanitation, as if those aren't big enough issues, they're working every day with engineering on sewer line breaks, on water line issues, on lead service line replacements, on the parks infrastructure. I've never seen anything like it in the 7 years that I've been at the city of Poughkeepsie. Every year we're doing more and more. And thank you to the team at DPW. I want to just, and I'm off script again, and I'm going to go late. I've got to talk about, for just a minute, sanitation in the city of Poughkeepsie. And I told John Penny I was going to do this. Just today, finally, we got the garbage truck, a brand new garbage truck. It replaces, I know. I said I was going to talk about some of the bad stuff, and I will. We had a fire up at the DPW transfer station, and that fire was, worse than was, I think, generally reported, certainly in terms of the time it's taken us to unwind the problems caused by the fire, everything from supply chain problems to the cost of replacements and dealing with complex insurance claims. But, I will tell you that the loss of that truck and that facility has been felt by our residents and people all through the city of Poughkeepsie. We've seen a real uptick in complaints and concerns, and I want to apologize to everyone in the city of Poughkeepsie and thank you for your willingness to bear with us as we work through that problem. We now are confident that we'll be able to pick up the pace on some of the issues that we've experienced. And we have a terrific team of people in our sanitation department led by Chris and Scott Johnson and others, who really, even through COVID, earned their stripes and continue to serve the city so well. And I want to thank sanitation. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to pick up the pace because John gave me the signal. Just on parks, I want to tell you, College Hill Park is getting, a lot of new things. We are going to be ready for the events. I see Yvonne Flowers smiling, and we are going to be ready for a lot of events at College Hill Park this summer. And I am not going to spill the beans on what's going on up there, but please, this summer, join us for some of the events that you're going to see published in the Buzz and in local media, particularly up there. I want to just very quickly mention King Street Park. It's often a park that's forgotten in the city. We plan on putting in new playground equipment, chess tables. A shout out to Council Member Nedra Thompson. Thank you. Her award. It is. These sound like small things, but really, if you don't have council people who are advocating for their wards, and that's one of the advantages of having a ward system where you've got 8 council people working on what's important in their wards. And we try to do a good job of listening to what our council colleagues need. Councilmember Nedra Thompson was really the driving force behind the changes that you're going to see happening this year up at King Street Park. And I talked about Pulaski Park. So I just want to acknowledge very quickly before I leave parks, the help and financial support of the Dyson Foundation. And Andrea Reynolds is with us here. I know she hates to take a bow, but let me tell you, I'm going to applaud for her anyway. Thank you. Some folks who help us are, just truly wonderful and magnanimous. I think some of them would prefer to stay in the shadows and be anonymous. I think one of the privileges of being the mayor is I can say what I want for 50 minutes a year. So I got 2 more sections, and then I just want to end up with a couple of really cool things. I'm going to start with something that is near and dear to my heart, which is a few minutes about the arts and the importance of arts in the city of Poughkeepsie. We started the youth grant program, as I said earlier, with an initial investment of $140,000. The model, starting small and growing it every year, is actually the way that small cities with challenging budgets have to find to meet those challenges. If you don't start small, you never start at all. And so I'm very happy to say this evening that I'm announcing the city will employ a similar strategy as we seek to build on Poughkeepsie's strength as a regional hub for the arts. We can no longer sit back as a city and expect great things to happen when we as a local municipality make no financial commitment to ensure that it does. And I just want to emphasize that again because I think it's the most important thing that I'm telling and sharing with you tonight. If we are not able, or worse, if we're not willing to support these things financially, they are nothing more than dreams. And so tonight, I am committing to the city a multi-year commitment to the arts that will start at the same $140,000 that we did 5 years ago with the youth grant program. So, thank you. There's a couple of quick things and specifics on the arts, but I do want to take a minute because I see we've got a lot of the Arts Commission members here. Jeff Amon and your team, would you please stand and be recognized? That I know you don't like to do it, but ladies and gentlemen, what the people who just stood up, for those who don't know, are volunteers that serve on the City of Poughkeepsie's Public Arts Commission, led by Jeff Amon, who many of you know. And I've got to tell you once again, at the risk of repeating myself, it was Mayor, now Senator Rob Rollison, who created the Public Arts Commission back in, I think, 16, was it, Jeff? 16? And all these years later, they have served on a volunteer basis doing so much for the arts community in the city of Poughkeepsie. And frankly, we need to do a better job at City Hall and as a community in showcasing what they do, what our local artists do, and in making the city of Poughkeepsie a regional hub for the arts that it really can be. I don't think we need to cede that status to Beacon or Kingston, and we're not going to do that. As everybody knows, the city embarked on a comprehensive plan and a zoning code update a couple years ago. It's been a long process as we've worked through updating our comprehensive plans. Been decades. It reminds me of what many of you in the room know as the LWRP, the Local Waterfront Revitalization Program, also a policy document that needed to be updated after languishing for 20 years. It took former councils a number of years to get that off the ground. As I talk a little bit tonight about the comp plan and zoning, I want to first mention the LWRP because I really want to acknowledge the work of Council Chairwoman Natasha Brown. When she was sworn in as the chairperson of the council, pretty much the same time I was, early in January, we had a quick meeting, and I'm going to share a little bit of that with you. It went something like this. We were both thrust into these positions, and we're both here for at least 1 year. And what do we want to do, and what can we do to ensure that we work together more collaboratively and that we can both stand here a year from now and say we accomplished some things? And so Natasha and I had a short list of things that we thought we could do right away, and one of them was the LWRP, which, no exaggeration, prior councils had done nothing with, despite the help of people like Yvonne Flowers and others doing their best to push it forward. It didn't get done. It is now done, and it was done at the first council meeting that Natasha Brown could do it. So thank you, Natasha. One of the reasons, probably the most two important reasons why it was so necessary to get the LWRP approved by our Common Council and up to the state of New York for adoption and approval, was that you really couldn't hope to pass a comprehensive plan for the whole city if you couldn't even tell your residents and constituents that you were able to pass a plan for a narrow section of it along the city waterfront, right? So first, get the LWRP done, and then let's move to the comprehensive plan. We also felt, the mayor and I, the former mayor and I, that the zoning changes obviously couldn't happen until you had a comprehensive plan adopted. And so it was very strategic and relatively obvious to everyone in the room that you had to do the LWRP, and then you had to do the comp plan, and then you could go and approach the lofty goal of passing zoning. Our zoning code hasn't been comprehensively updated in 40 years, and I think many of us in the room know why that is, because it's not easy to accomplish that. The second reason that we needed to get the LWRP done and the comp plan done is because you can't put out a request for expressions of interest for waterfront development on the so-called De La Valle site. You're not going to issue that RFP to the development community unless you're able to tell the development community what is the vision for the city of Poughkeepsie and what is the vision for the LWRP. So with all respect to my colleagues at the Poughkeepsie Journal and others who wrote many articles about, well, nothing's happening down at the southern waterfront, I think we can all now agree that you're not going to put out an RFP for that development until you get these things done. And those things were not done, and now they are done, and we've put out an RFP. So thank you to our friends at the Common Council. The Poughkeepsie Journal reported just the other day, in the context of the zoning public engagement, that the two most controversial properties that have not yet been developed in the city of Poughkeepsie are the De La Valle site on our southern waterfront and the former Pelton Mansion at a property that some referred to as the former Wheaton Park. And the Journal got that right. Those are actually the only two examples in the city of Poughkeepsie over the last 10 or 20 years that I have looked back on, where we have, as a city, denied the construction of new housing. And that brings me to a section that I want to talk to you about tonight, which is very important to everyone in the room and in the region. and that is housing. Anyone paying attention and seeing the patterns throughout the Hudson Valley knows that we need more housing of every type and at every price point. And I am proud to say that the city does more for affordable housing than any other municipality in Dutchess County by far. That means more than anybody in the city of Poughkeepsie. Just today, it was reported, again by our friends at Dutchess County, that they're putting over $8 million into affordable housing projects, $8.9 million throughout Dutchess County. 3 of those projects will be right here in the city of Poughkeepsie. So thank you to Dutchess County. I guess it's not really fair to say that Dutchess County doesn't do its part when it comes to affordable housing. At least that's my opinion. I want to thank our partners at Hudson River Housing, Rebuilding Dutchess, and Habitat for Humanity. They all have employed various strategies to get people into affordable homes, and I want to acknowledge the work of the City County Land Bank, led by Board Chair, the Reverend Susan Fortunato, who could not be with us tonight, and her fully engaged Board of Directors. Thank you so much to the Land Bank, and we are very proud at the City of Poughkeepsie to say that we will be bringing to our Common Council a proposal to actually transfer some vacant parcels located in the City of Poughkeepsie to the Land Bank for the first time. Thank you for that. I'm going to finish with infrastructure work, but I know everybody is interested in, and I want to apologize before I start by telling you that we are once again going to be digging up the city of Poughkeepsie. Last time it was Central Hudson. This time we are going to have a little bit more to do with it. So I've saved what I think is some of the best for last, and that is that we as a city are going to triple the amount of money that we spend this year on paving city streets. That is number one. You know, the city's aging infrastructure has been a problem for years. It's going to remain a problem. I'm not going to stand here and say that we have the answers to all of those. I promised you a little bit of the bad news as well. $30 million in sewer work, probably 40 or 50 in lead line replacement work, and the list goes on and on. These are not projects that the city can fund on its own, either by taxes or by borrowing. We're going to need those partnerships from other levels of government, and we are looking forward to having those conversations with our new leadership in Washington, Congressman Molinaro and Congressman Pat Ryan, who I know are watching tonight. Thank you, Congressman. Write a big check for the city of Poughkeepsie. There are 3 significant bridge projects going on that I want to report to you this evening, so you know they're coming. They will involve detours and so forth over the next year or two. The significant projects that are in the pipeline include the Garden Street Bridge, the Washington Street Bridge, and the Mansion Street Pershing Avenue bridges. And all of these bridges cross the Fallkill Creek, and all of them need significant work. I think 1, maybe 2 need to be completely replaced, and 1 is a rebuild. This is probably, in terms of bridges, the most robust and ambitious plan. We're not doing them all at the same time, fortunately, but it's going to be a lot of work. We retained 2 pavers this year, not 1. That's never been done before, but starting in a few weeks, as soon as the weather is clear and the paving folks are working, you're going to see folks in the streets of Poughkeepsie repaving streets where residents have begged us to please repave my street. Whether it's Academy Street or if somebody's watching on Marion, where I was the other night, that street hadn't been paved since 2006, and particularly in the 5th Ward, the 3rd Ward, and parts of the 8th Ward that have waited for so long. And we will maintain that level of funding for as long as we can sustain it. And we just ask for patience from homeowners and property owners as we get that important work done. Lastly, I did thank John Penny earlier tonight, but one of the things that we are very proud of as a team here at City Hall is the improvement in our public outreach and our public engagement. If you just look at what's happened over the last year or two from the Youth Opportunity Union to the comprehensive plan to the zoning to the Oakley Street proposal by Dutchess County. You don't have to look far to see really robust community engagement. Don't let anybody tell you that this community is not transparent. I don't want to hear that anymore. It is completely transparent because John Penny is putting everything out there that he possibly can. So, John, thank you. I posted on Facebook, and if you didn't see it, please take a moment to subscribe to The Buzz. It's not just a feel-good newsletter that maybe it was in years past. It actually is providing important information. Over the next month or two, we're going to have stories in there about very important work that's going on at Bartlett Park that I don't have time to talk about tonight. Very important work that's starting at Kale Rock Park, one of my favorite parks. There's some amazing things happening, and the mechanism that we use to get that information out to the public, it can't always be, state of the city addresses. It's really John Penny and our social media platforms. So thank you very much for that. Again, I want to just focus and end with what I started with, and that is that I've been your mayor for 90 days, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for bearing with me, for listening to this rather lengthy State of the City address, and for coming tonight and supporting our vision. It's not my vision. It's your vision. It's the work of all of the, I think, 385 city employees across 8 or 9 departments. And it's also the work of so many stakeholders and our friends at the county and also at the school district. We couldn't have done it without you. I want to say, and I'll take just a little credit along with the council, I think we've gotten more done in 90 days than we had in the previous 8 or 9 months. We're not arguing about every single thing anymore. We heard from the public about some problems with the proposal that would have rezoned the city, and we made changes as a result of that. I want to thank Councilmember Shook, and again, actually the whole council really came together around that. It's really a good sign when you don't have to call individuals out anymore. I mean, we did years ago. We had to say these council people helped and leave the rest unsaid. It's a really good sign when you could just say, you know what, the council was there and we all worked together on that. We are continuing our efforts to get that zoning plan adopted in a way that our community can embrace. And so there is continued dialogue about what's still in there, and that second or third draft is up on the website, and the council leadership has asked us to have a couple of more meetings, particularly with our North Side community, to make sure that we're hearing from everybody what do they want to see. And I will just, if let me editorialize, I will say that I don't think that there's anything more important for there to be robust community engagement around than rezoning an entire community, because you don't do it very often. It's every 20, 30, 40 years. We will get it right, and if that means we've got to take 40 more weeks, then we're going to take 40 more weeks to get it done. I want to thank you all again very much, and close with saying that undoubtedly we control our forward path, our forward progress. We all have a voice in the decisions, from zoning to what we spend our budget money on. Our council adopts a budget that's $102 million, an all-funds budget of $102 million. Why is it we only have 25 members of the public there, some of whom I see here tonight? And thank you for your public participation. We really should have more of it. And finally, I have one more announcement to make, and that has to do with a personal agenda item for me as your mayor that I hope I will be able to get implemented this year and continue to work on. And that is, the city is going to commit to help form and implement a downtown business improvement district in the city of Poughkeepsie. Seven years ago, I think some in the room will remember 6 or 7 years ago, there was an effort to create a bid. For a number of reasons, it didn't get off the ground. I think, I wasn't here at the time. I will say that looking back at the records I could find, The most important challenge was funding. We have an answer to that. And the second problem was, what is the footprint and how big is the footprint going to be? And I think what we need to do is put the right people, community stakeholders and property owners in the room and have that discussion. But the main reason that the effort failed in the past, I think, was that it was ahead of its time, quite frankly. The city was just not in a position to help, as I said, with all the problems that we had. So how are we going to make this work? We're going to say to the property owners in that footprint, whatever that footprint may be, that if they want to, and it would be a vote of the majority, to form the downtown business district, that the city of Poughkeepsie, using ARPA money, will help fund it for 1 year, and we will help fund half of it for the second year, phasing it out so that by the third year, the business owners, the property owners, however this is structured, will be fully responsible for this. And for those who aren't familiar with how a bid works, it raises revenue through extra taxation approved by the property owners within that district, and the city of Poughkeepsie passes that money along to the bid for its use under its own government's plan for what the business owners, property owners in the city of Poughkeepsie really want the money to be spent on. I'd encourage you all to take a few minutes, maybe over the weekend or coming weeks, to explore how business improvement districts have worked in other cities. In the past, clearly, the city of Poughkeepsie wasn't ready. In my view, we were too small and too poor. In my view, today, 7 years later, we're not too poor, and we're getting larger every day. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.